Well, hello and welcome to Frame.io Live. My name is Ryan. I'm part of the Enterprise Customer Success team here at Frame.io, based out of New York City. And today I am going to be taking you through Get to Know Frame.io version 4. I'm so thrilled that you're joining today. I have a great agenda doing a complete end-to-end overview of everything Frame.io. No matter what type of account plan you have, whether you're on one of our retail plans or one of our enterprise plans, I'll make sure that I call out all of the features to set you up for success today. This is a little bit more of an introductory session, but as we get started, feel free to find that comment section. We are completely live, so I would love to answer any questions that you have. But just to kick things off, would love to hear where you're tuning in from and anything you would like to get out of today's session. That goes for as we go along over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. Feel free to ask any questions. I will also be using that comment section to drop in the chat a couple of support articles that just reinforce and outline some of the topics that we'll be discussing. You can bookmark those or save them for a later date. I know I mentioned that we're completely live, but we are recording today's session. So if you signed up via the email flow through frame.io/live, you will receive a recording of today's call that will also be tracked in our YouTube page. But just to get things started, I do want to drop in the chat a support article that's just called Getting Started with Frame.io. This is a really great resource for you and your teams. There's a whole bunch of different links where you can access from there and can view any relevant information. We also have an e-learning hub. This is specifically built for our enterprise customers, but even if you're not an enterprise customer, fear not, this will still be applicable to you as well. Dropping this link in the chat as well for your reference for a later date. But our agenda for today, we are going to, like I said, do a complete end-to-end overview. So we're going to chat about account settings, of course, talk about user roles, who is who. We're also going to discuss workspaces and project, which will help inform how you actually organize your content within Frame.io. We'll talk about commenting and annotating and uploading and downloading content in and out of Frame.io. We'll also chat about some of our newest released features as part of version 4, including metadata and collections. We'll certainly chat about transcripts and text markup, some of our newest released features, and then, of course, we'll talk about external sharing. G just asked, any update on when the Premiere integration will release? The Premiere integration is released. We're continuing to release updates as part of that integration, but that integration has been live since November when we launched Frame.io version 4. Great question. Keep questions coming as we go along. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But G, back to your previous point around when it's going to be available. Our most recent update was just launched a couple of weeks ago for Premiere Pro 25.2. So you can export, share, and respond to feedback all directly within your timeline. So that should now be live. Cool. But if you're familiar with Frame.io, I would like to highlight that a lot of the core functionality of our product from V3 to V4 remains very similar. So you have the ability to upload, comment, annotate, share assets. All of this is cloud-based. We're review and collaboration. But with these new features and functionality available in V4, you'll really be able to take your creative process to the next level. I'll certainly highlight some ways that you can expand your creative process beyond just video. But let's start with a couple of the basics to begin. What you're looking at is my homepage here. I have a handful of workspaces, which you can see up here in the top left-hand corner. If you're an enterprise customer, you can create as many workspaces as you would like. The benefit being that any content that exists within these workspaces, you can keep separate. So not only for organization, but also the users who actually have access to these workspaces. So for example, I could just give users access to my marketing workspace and not Ryan's team, or vice versa. So it could be important to ask who actually needs access to the content when you're creating workspaces. Then within those workspaces are projects. You could see that listed right over here. So you could see within my marketing workspace, I have projects, short edits, or I could certainly create a new project. We'll talk about some of these projects here in just a bit. I do want to discuss user roles. This is one of the more common questions I get is who is who within the account? G just said, oh, okay, I thought the Premiere extension was not released yet. It is live. You certainly can access that just directly through Premiere. Actually, it's native. Good question. Talking about user roles and permissions, right over here on the right-hand side is where I can actually see a list of suggested users. These are users that are already a part of my space, but I also can determine exactly who I want to have access to each of my projects or workspaces. I am an account owner. So this means that I have access to every single workspace, all of the projects, and all of the content within. I also have the ability to adjust the global settings associated with my account. We also have a content admin. This user has access across all workspaces, projects, and content, but differs from the account owner in that they can't actually make global changes to account settings, just control the users within the projects and the various access and permissions based on workflow. And then lastly, we have members, which you're actually seeing listed here. So there's a handful of different member role types that you can add users as, either full access, edit and share, edit, comment only, or view only. So this certainly will determine exactly how you want users to interact with your assets. Then there's a free role that is just a reviewer. That's anybody who views content that's shared with them. So all of these member roles just mean that they're occupying a license, they're here. It just means that they don't have the ability to share out some of them. All right, let's see. Another question here from the chat. Don, can we sync photos with Adobe Lightroom? There is a beta for Adobe Lightroom, which actually you can access just down here under the settings of your account when you're actually in the account here. Under Camera to Cloud Connection, there's an option up here for Connect Adobe Lightroom, and this is a beta that you can sign in with your Adobe ID. All right, and another question from Maria C. It's great for work in a team. The comment function would be easier to handle. It's hard to comment on point with a Mac, always jumping 5 seconds. Interesting. Seems like that might be a bug, Maria. I would recommend that you reach out to our support team. I could show you how to do that, but I'm on a Mac now, and I'll show you the entire comment end-to-end workflow. All right. So I know we just chatted about user roles. Before we talk about projects and actually going into some content as well, I did want to chat through some of the user roles and settings. This is important. It certainly can help you just set up your account specifically. So I'm just down here in the bottom left-hand corner. I just clicked on this option here and was able to hop into my account settings. Every single user has the ability to adjust their profile. I'd recommend that your users at least add in their name, if not a photo. That's what will actually sync up with the content with a comment, so you know exactly who's leaving comments on your account. Users also can adjust their password and their email here. If you're an enterprise customer, we also can enable SSO or multi-factor authentication for your account. Users also have the ability to adjust their notifications. There's a couple of different ways that users can receive notifications within Frame.io. The first is via email. However, we send a digest as opposed to an email anytime a notification occurs. Typically, if you're working at scale, there might be a lot of people leaving comments all at once. Yeah, I think it would be frustrating if you received an email anytime somebody left a comment. So by choosing this frequency option, you can select every, let's say, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, hourly, or daily. I just want to receive a summary of actions that occurred within my account. That's option here for email notification frequency. Of course, you can also get a little bit more specific with the types of notifications you receive, either for comments or assets. So speaking of comments, you can determine, I want to receive comments in the app via email or via push notification for iOS, so on an iPhone or an iPad. You can turn these on for general comments, comment replies, or app mentions. You can do the same for assets. So anytime an asset is uploaded, if other people upload, if the status of an asset changes, for example, maybe it goes from in production to final, assigned to you, or transcript activity. This is all customizable depending on each individual user. You can also determine project notifications at the project level. I can showcase that in just a bit. If you are managing your account here through Frame.io as opposed to through the Adobe Admin Console, this is where you have the ability to adjust usage, plan, billing, and users. So you can see all of these details here. This usage information is just a high-level snapshot of the members, reviewers, and storage within your account. If you are not on an enterprise plan, you can adjust your plan type or your billing details right here under these two tabs. Users is where I have the ability to view at a high level all of the users within my account. I also can add new users here and then determine later which project or workspace I want them to be a part of. This tab also enables me to keep track of my current users, so I can filter based on the last activity date for my users. Looks like Luke hasn't been active for about 5 months, so this could be an opportunity for me to remove Luke from my account. Additionally, I can filter, determining where I want to actually view users from, whether they're active or just pending. Let's say I want to reinvite Luke back into my workspace. I can do so just by clicking on the top right corner. putting in Luke's email address, determining which role I want Luke to be, either a content admin or a member, and then just clicking add. I can do that in mass as well and add more than just one user at a time. But now you can see that Luke is currently a pending user. So then back on my homepage, I can then add Luke into each project or workspace I want Luke to be a part of. Groups. You can see here that I have one group. This is just called editor team, but this just eliminates the need to have to invite individual users if I know I'm going to be inviting in a handful of users all at once. You can see I have one for editor team, but let's create a new group together. I can select exactly who they are. So let's say that we have a group of directors who are going to be stakeholders on a specific project. I could then add members in. Let's say April, Jacob, and myself are all directors. I know that I'm going to be adding these users every time to specific projects or workspaces, just saving a bit of time by creating a group. And workspaces. Remember, this is the highest level of organization that exists within your account. This is where you have the ability to then create projects within those spaces. Like I mentioned, if you're an enterprise customer, you can create as many as you would like. Certainly depends on your account type, but from here you could filter and see which users are a part of which workspace. You also can see the number of projects within, and by clicking on the workspace can just give you a greater snapshot of the amount of storage that's being occupied and the members and their various roles within that workspace. I can also create a new workspace up here in the top right corner. Let's call something fall campaign. We're going to be looking ahead a couple of months. We're working on something for the fall. I've now created this new workspace, which will sync up with my homepage. And I hope that you're sensing a theme as I click on this projects option right over here. Again, just greater visibility into the projects that exist within my account, the status, the last time they were updated, and by clicking into each option, I can then see which users are a part of it and how much storage is being occupied on a per project basis. This tab up here for filter also gives me a couple of additional options if I want to see users' workspaces, an active or an inactive project. All right. Branding. This option pertains to both the account itself. So I have a little tile option. I can change the font or the name of my tile here, but I also have the option to select what I want a default share to look like. Remember, we are collaboration and review. So of course there's a sharing component. We want to make sure that stakeholders and users can actually see the content that we've created. This share pertains to a custom brand. So I've added Frame.io colors here, which is purple and black. I can determine the logo, header image, even accent colors, which is a default share. I'll showcase this a little bit later in the session when we actually create a share, where you can actually see the default that I had created. The last option I want to talk about here within our settings is content security, and then we'll hop into the meat of our content for today. But this content security enables both secure share settings and also some internal settings as well. So speaking of sharing, I have a couple of different defaults that I could add. Remember, you can create a link for somebody to view, but I can also customize it at the time of sharing. This setting here pertains to that global default setting. So do I want to require a passphrase anytime I share out a link? A user actually has to input a passphrase. That's this first option. I also can set a default share expiration. So let's say you have a specific deadline or you want users to complete their comments by a specific date. You can also set that default to be 12 hours, 1 day, 1 week, or 4 weeks. You can also add custom options. And then lastly, the option to allow share downloads. I say this is the most popular of these share options. Do I actually want to enable individuals to download the assets that I've shared with them? I just disabled that. I can enable that at a later date. And then secure sharing. This is an enterprise specific feature. It requires that a user signs in to a Frame.io account before they can view the link that I've shared with them. They don't occupy a seat. They can create a free Frame.io account, but it just means that the user that can view it is the one whose email address I've sent it to. I also can enable an authorized domain. So for example, at adobe.com, I only want users with those domains to actually view my content. I also can make it a default to send a secure share link or a public link. Let's make it public so we can change that later. I'm also going to disable this domain because we want to create and share a link later in the session. Watermark. There is the option to apply watermark on internal assets. I would say this isn't as popular of an option, but maybe you're working on a hyper-specific or black box project and you want to require it on internal assets, you certainly can. You also can require watermark on external shares. You see that I have this enabled. Let's create a new template together just so I can show you what it looks like. You might have access to some of these features depending on your account type. Some might be a little bit more dynamic than others. Let's call this one Fall Campaign. We know that we're working on a specific project. I can add the name, email address, the IP address of the user viewing the content, the date and time, and any custom text. So I just put in cool project. I also can adjust the opacity. I can rotate text. I also have the ability to add in a second text block, and I can move it around on the screen. So I could have multiple watermarks happening all at the same time. Totally up to you, however you prefer to manage and work through your watermark. I'm going to delete this block, and we just want to keep this option. Let's make it small and just have it laid right here in the middle of the screen. All right. Any questions about settings? Please let me know. I'm going to click on the top left corner here and go home, where we are going to create a new project in our fall campaign, and then actually upload some content and go through an end-to-end review. In this page here, I have the option to filter how I want to view my projects. Do I want to see it in list format or thumbnail format? I also can filter based on active or inactive projects. So let's say I want to view all of my projects. You could see that some of these have the option that say inactive. That just means that I've marked them as inactive by clicking on this drop-down option, which essentially will just hide that project from my home page. Those projects will still occupy storage that's associated with my account. However, I just won't see it. It's kind of like archiving, but just meaning that it will be eliminated from my view. I can move it back from active or inactive, but this filtered option just helps me keep this homepage a little bit clean. I only want to see my active projects now. And then I can sort based on the name, the date created, or the status of these individual projects. You know that I mentioned that I can receive project notifications. I can enable that or disable it. If it's disabled, you'll only see @mentions associated. I can, of course, adjust any project settings associated as well. Remember, I did mention you still have to invite users into each workspace or project. So let's say I want somebody to be invited here into my fall campaign. I want them to have access by default to every single project. Then I would invite them here at the workspace level. And I'm going to invite my new user, Luke, and I want to give Luke edit and share access only. So this is how I'm able to not only send that user an email, but also invite them into my workspace. Additionally, I can create a new project and just invite a member into that project. I'll show you that in just a moment. But when creating a new project, you could see here that I have a couple of different templates that I could use. Digital video production, location scouting. If you're new to Frame.io, I would recommend leveraging one of these templates and including some sample content. So that way you can even see a couple of workflows that our team has generated and created just to get a good idea for ways that you could be working. Of course, you can disable this sample content if needed. But let's start from a blank project, and I want to call this one casting photos. We want to upload a couple of photos, and I can make a project restricted, meaning that I'll still have to send a secondary invite by default. That user will not have access to that project. All right, so we now have an option for casting photos, and it's going to automatically open up this project. Up here in the top right corner is where I can invite in a user just into this project. So let's say I want to invite Jacob into this project. I'm only sending Jacob an invite to be invited into this project exclusively, not the rest of the workspace. Let's start by just uploading content. This is now a blank, empty sandbox for me to be able to get to work. I can just click upload, this big glaring upload option in the middle of my screen, where I have the option to then select either a folder or a handful of assets. I'm going to select these assets and click open. I want to draw your attention over here to the left-hand corner of the screen where you are going to get an upload status and a full audit trail of content that had been uploaded previously. You also have the option to show in the project, which means that it'll bump you directly over to the most recently updated content. And then from here, within this project, now I have the option to view these assets. I can move them around. I can create folders. I would like to highlight that anytime you upload content, there's a handful of things that happen. The original is always being imported and saved into Frame. So you have access to that original file if you need to download it or send it to somebody else. But we do transcode and create lightweight web and mobile-friendly proxy versions of content So that way you could play it back from anywhere. You have access to Frame. Maybe you're on set, you're working at the airport, your Wi-Fi isn't very good. You can certainly drop it down in proxy if you're viewing some video content. All right. Now that I have all these assets, I want to show you how you could actually create a folder and move some content around. So I'm just doing a two-finger click here where I can create a new folder or a new restricted folder. Let's say I just create a new folder. I can take a handful of these headshots and I can just drag and drop them over into that new folder. Alternatively, I can do another right finger click on the asset itself and I can copy it, move it, or duplicate it. Let's say I actually want to copy this over into this folder. I'm able to do so. As you can see, it's going to create a secondary version of that asset just by copying it over. So some of these copy to move to options might create a duplicate asset. Moving it will just move that asset exclusively. Copying it will not move over any comments. You also can create a restricted folder. This means that by default, you have to re-invite users to have access to it. So now no users have access to this restricted folder because I created it. But let's say I want to give Jacob access to this restricted folder. Now Jacob can only see content that's associated with that restricted folder. Okay. I want to drop in the chat now an article around restricted content in case you have any questions. Who actually has access to it? Any questions about uploading content or moving it around or organizing it within your space? Please let me know. While I'm waiting for any questions, I am going to click on the top left corner of my home screen, and I want to go into the short edits project within my marketing workspace. I just want to give you a brief tour exactly what you're looking at. This is my main page. Over here on the left, I can go home, I could search for assets, see my notifications or my uploads. We already went through some of those together. But this option here, this panel view, enables me to see all of my folders broken out in a folder tree. I can also open up the different source folders and I can see these assets. So I can move around folders here within this tree if desired. Moving on down, you see this option here for collections. We'll hop into that in a minute. But collections are essentially a smart folder where I can capture a group of assets or individual assets based on specific metadata tags. And then there is this option down here for share links. This all lives at the project level where I'm able to see all of the content that I have generated to share out externally. And then Dan, I know that you were asking earlier about Lightroom. There's also this option down here for C2C connections. That stands for camera to cloud connections. You could sync up any hardware that you would like with Frame, meaning that the second you call cut, content will automatically upload into your Frame.io account. That could all be managed right down here on the bottom left. Up here at the top on the header, there's the option to change the appearance of the assets. Again, this is just for each individual user, so you doing this will not do so globally. But I can view my content in either thumbnail or list format. I can adjust the card size, small, medium, or large. I can change the aspect ratio depending on how it's shot or how I want to view it. Of course, can adjust the title line, and I can even flatten folders, meaning that it will just break out all of the assets within my account. Fields. This pertains to metadata fields. We'll get to that in a minute. And then sorting is where I can also determine how I actually want to sort out my options and my assets on my account. I know I mentioned a panel view earlier. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Up in the top right corner, this is where I can break out a handful of panels. So if I wanted to see my folder tree, my collections, and my share links, all of the assets associated, and then even a little bit larger, I can then view by clicking on an asset. I can see the larger listed right here. I also have the option to view comments associated, meaning that I don't have to click into an asset before I can actually see the comments. I can just expand out this panel and see it in a higher clip from my project page. I prefer this view and I prefer this in medium, so let's leave it here for now. Any questions about the panel view? Please let me know. Let's go ahead and hop into this footage folder. This entire project is called Drip. This is an energy drink campaign that our teams are creating. And let's say that our final deliverable is to deliver to social media. There's a whole bunch of clips in here that you're going to see of a runner. We're going to be interviewing her. She is working out. She's using Drip, our energy drink. We want to make sure that we can highlight all of these things as much as possible. So let's say that we're going through a complete commenting and annotating process. We're working on a quick cut. Let's say we want something short that we're going to be delivering to social media. I want to leave a couple of comments for my team. Maybe I also want to share it out with my team. Maybe we have different versions. Let's talk about version stacking, commenting and annotating, and then we'll talk about some of the different ways that you can comment and annotate on more than just video assets. So, starting with one of my favorite features, this is called version stacking. You can see that I'm scrubbing here and I'm viewing these two assets. This one is just a close up version of this one. They're very similar. Maybe there's similar edits. Maybe we have a similar voiceover over the two. I want to keep them together. I can just take one asset and drag and drop it over the next, and it's going to create a version stack as indicated by this V2 option here. That just means that there's two assets as part of this stack. I know that we're all guilty of having really long email threads where nobody's quite sure what the final is, or maybe the title of a final deliverable is final.final. This version stacking feature prevents the need for that. By opening up this asset, I then have the option to select either version 1 or version 2, where I can keep them together in this stack, or I could compare them side by side. So by clicking play, I then can watch them in tandem. By selecting the asset, you can see this purple line right up here. It's going to reveal the different comments that are associated with it, enabling me to really see what had been done between version 1 or version 2. I also can A/B test audio between 1 and 2. So if there's a different song, different voiceover, I can select these options and play them in tandem together. And the cool thing about the version stack is I can share it out. So I can share out this entire version stack with external stakeholders as part of a review link. I'm going to open up this asset now. What you're looking at is the player page where we could see this individual asset of our runner. We want to use this as part of that highlight reel that we're going to be creating for social media. I want to walk through commenting and annotating on a video asset now. I really like this shot. I like the morning sun coming through, the rays of light. I like the slow-mo, but I think that there's a couple of things that we want to inform our editors of before we proceed with using this final edit. Down here in the bottom left, there is the option for play pause. You can loop. You can adjust the playback speed or the audio. You also have the option to change the time format, ranging from frame standard to timecode, whatever your preference is. And down here in the bottom right, there's the option to leave an anchored comment. I'll showcase that in a minute. You can adjust the settings. So here's the different proxy versions that I had mentioned earlier, just under this quality option. You can add a guide. So maybe we want to see how this will look on Instagram, for example. I also have the option to set a frame as the thumbnail or download a still directly from this assets. Over here on the right is where all the comments that I leave will show up. And down in the bottom right is where I can select what type of comment I want to leave and can also leave a public or an internal comment. Internal comments are just for members, so any external stakeholders won't actually see those. Public means that anybody can see it, even if you share it out. All right. I know that we just watched this asset through. I want to highlight the different types of comments that could be left. There's a single comment, a range-based comment, an app mention, an annotation, a hashtag, an anchored comment, or the ability to upload a file to a comment. I can do just a single one of those, or I can do multiples at the same time. Maria, I know that you were mentioning that you were having some trouble with the comment function. Let me know if this clears some of it up. And if you're still having issues, I can show you where you can escalate some feedback. A single comment is just that. So let's say that we hit play, we go over here to our comment. I'm going to start typing. And the second I started typing, I don't know if you saw, the video auto paused and it did leave me in this exact location on the timeline where I want to leave a comment. Let's say I just want to leave a single based comment here and say, I like this initial shot. I'm not leaving a ton of information for our team, but I am letting them know I like it. It looks good. And then my name and my photo is going to sync up with that direct spot on the timeline. But let's say I'm watching this back and I say, actually, I kind of prefer it starting here, right when our runner starts to go around the bend and we start to get a little bit of these rays of light. Maybe I could indicate to our editors, let's cut out that entire first chunk. So I want to leave a range-based comment indicating a bracketed portion where I want this comment to exist. I'm just going to say, can we please edit out this first part? But what first part am I actually referring to? Let's go over here to our timeline. I can drag and drop this option here and also get precise. Where exactly am I looking on the screen? We like it right. I liked it when she was kind of crossing this line right here. right, looking good. We're just about to cross the line there. Perfect. So let's say here. And let's say I want to indicate to our editor, Jacob, hey, let's get rid of this. So Jacob is now going to receive an email and a notification because I mentioned Jacob. And I'm also able to view this comment, and this white line indicates that this is that bracketed portion that I was mentioning earlier. All right, and let's say we want to edit to our VFX team. I really like these rays of light, but it seems like the color's kind of washed out. I can leave a comment indicating this. Let's do a hashtag comment so I can search for that later. I'm going to do hashtag VFX. The color looks washed out. Can we make the sky more blue in the background? All right, and let's say I want to indicate exactly where. I can draw an annotation. So I can do an arrow, a line, a box, or draw freehand. Let's draw an arrow and let's make it stick out a little bit. So let's make it pink. And I want to indicate that this is the portion back here that just looks a little bit washed out to me. Like the gradient sky over here looks nice, but I want it a little bit more blue. All right. So by clicking on this asset, you can see that it's going to reveal that annotation that I had left as part of that comment. All right. There is an option for an anchored comment. I've seen this used frequently for photo assets or PDFs because it indicates that I could actually drop a specific pin or a location on my asset and indicate a comment that's associated with it. Let's say that I really wish that she was wearing a watch and maybe we had a mock-up for a watch that we wanted to add in post or maybe reshoot. Let's leave a comment on our model's wrist and just saying, I thought we had that partnership for the watch. I could even add an attachment to my comment. I know that I just added a headshot, but let's say I wanted to use a watch, for example. And let's make this one internal. We don't want any of our external stakeholders to see that, maybe in the event that that partnership falls through. So now I can click on this comment. I can see the asset that I uploaded as part of it. And it will also indicate right here that this is that anchored comment that I left. By clicking on it, you could see that comment as well. All right, and then the last form of the comment that I could leave down here is I could actually upload a PDF. So let's say that we have a voiceover script and I want some approval on it. Let's say I just want April to review this. I'm just gonna say, April, can you please review this voiceover and give your feedback? And of course I can leave an emoji. Cool. So I've just left a whole bunch of different types of comments. Over here on the right-hand side, this comment portion now, all of these users are going to receive notifications. The ones that I had mentioned, so Jacob and April will receive a notification. They'll also receive an email. I want them to interact back with me. Cool thing about this comment section is how dynamic it is. Let's say that Jacob wanted to respond back and say, yes, I already did this. Jacob has the Premiere integration. It's synced up. Jacob is going to maybe upload it as part of a version stack and re-upload it into Frame. All those things can be indicated. Jacob also has the ability to make a comment complete. And then I can actually filter out my comments up here based on completed comments. So it's going to indicate that that comment had already been done, and your team can use this entire list like a checklist. Your team also has the ability to search for keywords such as VFX, which is the benefit of the hashtag here within this section. And in the top right corner under this three dots, there's the option to copy comments. So I can copy and paste them onto a different asset. I also can export them to Media Composer, to Resolve. But I'd say a more common use case here is to actually print comments, which is going to open up a whole new tab, but it gives me a full audit trail of all of the comments I had left with the timestamps applicable. Questions about commenting and annotating. If I was to share this out for review, users will be able to see all of the comments with the exception of any of those private or internal comments only. All right, any questions, please let me know. You can also see here at the homepage that there's now 6 comments that are associated with this individual asset. And for just demonstration's sake, let's say that these are all like assets. I want to put it as part of that version stack. Boom, I've now added that to this additional version stack. So that's commenting and annotating specifically for video files. But let's say I want to actually access this for some of our text-based editing. These are some of our newest features. All right, let's go ahead and open up this PDF document that we have. Frame.io for video, photography, and marketing teams. Cool. This document outlines the best ways to leverage Frame.io if you're a part of a video team. But the cool thing about this new option now is I can actually select text in my document and add comments or draw attention to a specific text. So let's say I do a Command F search and I want to say, well, what are we talking about in the cloud? I can actually search for these keywords for cloud. You can see that that is going to highlight here. Very cool. Work in the cloud. Enable your team to work remotely as if you were all in the same room. Frame.io is the central platform for project assets from production to final delivery. All right. So not only did I search for that, but I also can suggest edits to this document. So there's four different markup options. I can highlight text, I can insert new text, I can suggest deletion or replacing of words. Let me show you how. Down here on the bottom right, where the anchored comment option was for video, I now have this option for text. And I can highlight an entire portion, and then these options are going to show up for highlight, insert, remove, or replace. So maybe I just want to insert something as part of this and say this new feature. I want this to be internal and send. You can see here that it's going to leave a little option down here for my text-based edit, but then this is going to show over here on the right-hand side. I also can export comments to maintain feedback context. So text markups will be included in print and other comment exported formats. So if I was to go up here and print this comment, you'll be able to see exactly where I wanted to make these edits here. I want to drop in the chat now an article around text markups for your team, just given that this is a brand new feature. And an additional feature that I want to draw your attention to is transcription. So you now have the option to generate and view transcripts associated with assets. So I have a whole bunch of video assets here. We've done a couple of interviews, not only for our athlete, but also for our coach. Let's say I want to generate a transcript for all of these. I can multi-select, and then down in the bottom right corner, there's the option to generate a transcript. There are 18 different languages. There's yet to be the option to change from one language to the next. So just make sure that the transcript that you're generating is in the original language. But there's a ton of different options here, as you can see, 18 to select and choose from. Let's use English and transcribe. In doing so, by opening up an individual asset, I then can see the transcript listed here on the left-hand side. Not only can I find keywords within this transcript, but by default, closed captioning is going to be enabled both for web and iOS platforms. So you can see here that as I click play, the transcript is going to follow along. I also have the option to edit a transcript. Like I mentioned, search within a transcript or also leave comments associated with a portion within the transcript. I'm just clicking here and saying I like this part, but it enables me to leave a comment that then I could click on and it will take me directly over to that location in the transcript. Super cool technology, really exciting update. I also now have the option here where I could export it to SRT, VTT, or TXT. Pretty awesome. Questions about transcriptions, please let me know. I do want to drop in the chat now an article around transcriptions, and we will move on to fields and metadata. I'm going to go back over here to my short edits, and I want to view the fields that I have listed here for my metadata. So you can see here that these are just my individual assets. There's 38 different fields. However, there's actually 33 default fields. I've just created a couple of my own custom fields to add a couple of metadata tags and to also be able to move them over into a collection at a later date. The Creative Vision, what's up? Nice to see you here on the call. Yeah, I love these features. All right, back to our fields here. Let's say that I wanted to actually view a couple of fields that are associated with my asset. Actually, I want to see the status of these. Maybe we also want to see who actually saw these assets. These are metadata fields that I'm viewing. Release platform, the release date, maybe a rating. What else do we want to see? Format, maybe? Final edit? All right. You can see that as I'm checking on these metadata fields, they're automatically going to show up on my assets. This thing gives me the ability to filter and sort my assets, just leveraging a different option outside of just the folder, but enables me to do so in mass within my project. This option for release platform is a custom option. So if I wanted to create my own field, I could go up here to fields, create new field. Let's say that you have your own approval flow. You can create a metadata field based on your own individual approval flow. So let's say I want to do multiple select. I could then add in options and say like not yet approved, in progress, editing, needs approval, completed. Okay. So I just added in this metadata field for my specific approval flow. So now I can select any of these options. Maybe you have your own internal vernacular that you use when you're going through an approval flow, but now I can filter and sort based on these options. Metadata fields also enable me to sort based on these different fields, so I can organize my content, but where this really shines is within collections. So I would like to draw your attention to this final asset collection here. You could see here that these have release platforms that are all applied to them. But by clicking on final assets, I then can see our final deliverables, which is filtered right here using this option where final asset or final edit is checked. So we know that these are our finals, and it's grouped also based on a metadata field of release platform. So I have it now organized based on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and final deliverable is checked yes. So let's watch our final deliverable. We know that we're going to be deploying this one. Nice. So that's done. We're good to go. We're ready to deploy this to Instagram, for example. However, I can create my own collection. I'm going to click this plus button right over here. And let's go ahead and determine where do we want to pull our options from? Do I want to view just all assets within my account or a specific folder? Let's use all assets. I also have the option to fully customize this collection. So collection of 5-star assets, let's say. I know that I want to create a collection of everything that we have ranked with 5 stars. I can also adjust a header. So I can create my own custom image up here. Apply. Let's make it large. Similar to what we were doing earlier, I can adjust the appearance of my assets. But what I want to do now is I want to filter based on the metadata fields of rating is 5 stars. And it's going to then pull every single asset associated with my account that has 5 stars. But the cool thing about the metadata fields here is that it auto adjusts when I add other assets to that collection that match that metadata criteria. And I have the ability to share out this collection. So let's say I want to share this collection of 5-star assets with my stakeholders. I can just generate a share link based on this collection for my stakeholders to review. Questions about metadata and collections, please let me know. I do want to move on to talking a little bit about shares here too. From here, I'm now generating a share link. I have options over here on the right-hand side to edit this share link. Do I want it to be public or secure? Remember, secure sharing is an enterprise-specific feature. It requires that users sign in before they can actually view their content. However, I can send via email or I could just copy and paste the link. But let's say I want to add in a couple users' emails. I can do that here, including any of our um, users that are already a part of our space. So let's say I want to send it to these users, I can do so. I also can adjust the layout. Do I want to see my share link in a grid, a list, or with my custom branding in the form of a reel, which is a little bit more of a final deliverable? Let's keep it in grid. I also can adjust my security settings. Remember in the settings way earlier in the session, we went through some of the defaults. So I can adjust the passphrase, the expiration date, or the watermark, which is default added. I also can adjust the permissions. How exactly do I want reviewers to interact with this link? Do I want to enable users to comment, to download, to see all the version stacks, to see the transcripts or the captions? I also can adjust which field I want users to see and if they have the ability to edit some of these user fields as well, metadata fields. It's all customizable. Let's go ahead and open up this share. We want to share this collection of five-star assets with our team. This is exactly how users will be able to see it, interact with it. Remember, I did add a watermark. So this watermark is going to be applied here, but these users can have the option to adjust the status fields, leave comments, and of course, they won't actually see any of those internal comments that I had added. There's a couple of different ways that I can create share links as well. Back here within my accounts, I can also just select a group of assets and I can create a share link based on those assets. You can see here that it's going to show with defaulted of the date. I also have the option to create a share link from nothing. So let's say I just wanted to click plus and create a share link, saying a new share link of drag and drop assets, meaning that I could just take assets as we go along and I can drag and drop them into a share link. View this, scrub it really quickly. Okay, I like that one. Let's add it in. So a couple of different ways that I can view these share links. By clicking on this option for all share links at the top, it is going to reveal all of the links that you've created within your project with the ability to sort and filter. You also can multi-select and maybe delete them. So these ones are done, they're old. We also can disable or delete them as well. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone through the settings of the account, spoken about user roles, workspaces and projects, uploading content. We've spoken about commenting and annotating, metadata and collections, text markups and transcriptions, and external sharing. I want to highlight a couple of things before we wrap up. Any last questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now. But I do want to direct your attention to the bottom left-hand corner where there's an option to see keyboard shortcuts. So I've used a couple of keyboard shortcuts as I was going along. I would recommend maybe using this for some comments, Maria. If your team is running into some issues, could be a good place to just double check to make sure that there isn't something that's skipping ahead. There's also the option down here, clicking on the light bulb to submit a feature request. So if there's a feature that you would like to see, please let us know. Our team takes this seriously. We love hearing from you. So please let us know if there's something that you would like to see done or implemented or done differently. And then lastly, by clicking on this little speech bubble with a question mark, you can have direct access to our support team. These are actually a couple people that are chatting live right now. They're available 24/7. You can chat and also access any support articles here. But speaking of support article, the last that I want to leave you with is just the general knowledge base that we have available. You can access that by just clicking on the link here. It looks like this. And you can then access any of our articles just based on whatever your need is. And I haven't seen any questions come through. So if there are any questions after today's session, feel free to reach out to our support team. We can always get you in touch. Fraggle Car said, I saw a demo of video sharing from the Frame.io cloud in Premiere before. Can you still do this? Yes, you can certainly share from Premiere back into Frame. That is possible. Let me see if I can find an article around it. All right, here's the most up-to-date info I have around Premiere. I'd recommend checking that out. A lot of Premiere questions today. Maybe I should create a Premiere Pro session. But I do lead this more introductory session every single week. Maybe it could be good for me to create something that's a little bit more Premiere specific. Thanks for the feedback today. But on behalf of our entire teams, thank you for joining. I hope that this was a helpful introductory session. Like I said, I'll be right back here again next week. But no matter where you're tuning in from, this was Frame.io version 4, Frame.io Live. Thank you again. I hope to chat with you soon or see you back on another session. Take care.